Christina Rowe, born in the 1990s and raised in Angeles City, Philippines, early in the morning of February 10, 2021, heard a strange noise in the kitchen and went downstairs to investigate. When she entered the room, she saw a man packing her mother's body in a suitcase. Despite her young age, the girl realized that her mother had died and that she could now become the attacker's next victim. She was able to experience a diverse culture thanks to her father Marcus's British citizenship and her mother's secret Filipino heritage. Christina knows little because her early years and upbringing in the Krug family are still hidden in mystery. But we were able to find out that she had a sister, and that they were close and deeply in love. Christina fell in love in 2010, became pregnant, and gave birth to a daughter whose name is also kept secret to protect security and privacy. In accordance with the law, in this case we will call the daughter T as indicated in some court documents. The father of the child is unknown. However, we managed to find out that he did not participate in raising his daughter, and the little girl courageously overcame this. Christina was greatly influenced by Ty's presence, and in 2017 to 2018 she took on the role of mother passionately and responsibly. Christina began to worry about widespread poverty as prospects for finding work or education began to diminish. At this point, the city was already known for forcing its citizens to engage in activities bordering on the illegal in order to survive. In fact, it was said that most of the city's problems needed to be solved because so many women were forced into prostitution. Young mother Christina was worried about the state of affairs and wanted a change of scenery. Driven by optimism and taking advantage of British citizenship, Christina received a passport, and despite significant dangers traveled to the UK with her daughter. She made a bold choice and went to Worcester, leaving friends and family behind. Her intentions were clear. Her desire to create a better future for herself and her daughter was unwavering. After Christina moved to the UK, she wanted to give her daughter a first-class education and opportunities beyond what she had. She worked a lot of overtime and sometimes worked several jobs at the same time. She began working in a large department store, then moved on to hard hourly cleaning work. Part-time modeling was perhaps the most exciting of all her occupations. She further distinguished herself in the English modeling business thanks to her keen attentiveness and natural skill. Those around her commented on how intelligent and spiritual she was. Her exotic looks and skin tone also helped her stand out. Christina was a thoughtful person who aspired to be a writer. According to several articles we found about her, she had a special combination of competence and grace that impressed those who know her. Christina possessed the power of tornado because she never gave up in the face of adversity and followed her own rhythm by dancing traditionally. Her interests included cooking, nature writing, poetry, painting and philosophy. However, besides all these personal pursuits, her main goal was to support her daughter, a prosperous existence both on an emotional and material level. Christina was portrayed in the media as a loving and devoted mother who had a unique bond with her daughter. Their rapport was so deep that it seemed more like a sisterly relationship than a mother-daughter relationship. Living in a two-story house and going out together during turbulent times made it easier for them to adjust. When Christina's father also moved to England, they also had more emotional support. But due to a hectic lifestyle and many activities, Christina was left at home alone. When the girl had rare free time and generally felt more stable, she decided to give love another chance. In December 2019, fate connected Christina through a popular dating app with Charles Berm, a man 3 years younger than her. Although there is not much information about him, she managed to find out that he loves to play the guitar and that his family has a long history of mental illness and related pathologies. Despite the small age difference, this did not stop the couple's romance. Charles became close to Christina on an emotional level and was not at all ashamed of the fact that she had a daughter. Taking this into account, they decided to go further and arrange a personal meeting. When they met, they came to the conclusion that they were suitable for each other and decided to start a romantic relationship. At first, everything looked like a fairy tale. Charles got along well with you and considered himself an ideal person. The man moved into the house that Christina was renting from her after a budding relationship. But their 6-month cohabitation ended when the global health emergency broke out in 2020. Despite the strain this put on people's daily lives, including Christina's attempts to find work, the situation became extremely difficult. There were rumors that the man had clear signs of mental illness, including episodes of losing touch with reality. outbursts of anger, and controlling behavior towards the young woman even though they were no longer in a romantic relationship. Friends and relatives remained silent about the reasons for the separation. They had the same conversations as couples who had just separated under similar circumstances. After their separation in February 2021, Christina continued to stay in the same house with her daughter, and the guy continued to live with his parents. Despite the fact that they lived in the same city and were only 5 kilometers from each other, Charles clearly could not move away from the split, and continued to often visit Christina at home, especially late in the evening and with intense excitement. Feeling sorry for him, she let him into the house and they talked while she did not return to the man. The calm nature of this kind of act irritated Christina's family and friends, who warned her of his unstable emotional state and recalled the detrimental influence he had on her and her daughter during their life together. Later, Christina's friend and photographer George stated that at worst, the guy was obsessive and refused to acknowledge the split, so mother and daughter sought refuge in his house for many days. However, no one knew that Charles would go so far as to begin to pursue Christina on his own after their breakup. The most serious incident occurred when he held Christina against their will for several hours. In the end, the young woman managed to persuade him to leave, but for some reason he was not charged for this incident. Thus, we are transported back in time to February 9, 2021, when T and Christina fast asleep in their beds and had no idea what would happen that early morning. Charles arrived at Christina's house on February 10th with a guy with a bag, and it is assumed that the young woman gave him permission to enter as there were no signs of forced entry. Soon after, they got into a fight in the kitchen and he, in a rage, began to choke Christina even though her lips were not blue. Not satisfied with this, he stabbed her in the heart. Among all this chaos, little T heard screams and, being an inquisitive child, risked leaving her room to figure it out. When she entered the kitchen, she saw Charles packing her mother into a suitcase. At that moment, the girl realized that her mother had died. Although she was still a small child, the reason for this was that, in a panic, realizing that he had been found, he grabbed her by the neck and strangled her, saying that he was very sorry. After that, she lost consciousness from oxygen starvation and Charles hit her head on the floor several times, believing that he had thus ended her life. Then he went down to the kitchen where she suddenly regained consciousness. Despite her age, the girl was able to find out her mother's death. When the man finally left the house, the neighbor noticed that he was carrying, in her opinion, a guitar case, but what he was dragging behind him turned out to be a suitcase. As we already know, he entered the house with Christina's body. The girl paid attention to everything and heard some sounds as if a man was cleaning. A few minutes later, she heard him leave the house. In the morning, the neighbors were awakened by screams and sounds of blows. Then there was a suspicious silence. There was so much blood that it was leaking from the luggage due to the serious wound he inflicted on her. Despite this, Charles somehow managed to stuff the bag into his mother's car. After that, he drove the car back to his parents' house to make the luggage heavier and to make drowning easier. He took some bricks and put them inside. Charles headed to the bridge over the river after leaving his parents' house. The man decided to get rid of Christina's body in this beautiful place. First he tried to throw the luggage over the railing, but it didn't work because he didn't have enough muscles. Instead he dragged Christina under bridge and threw it into the river. Then he returned to Christina's house and found you sleeping and lying in his room and not in the bathroom. A little later that morning, he ran away and hid in his parents' house because he was afraid that at that moment he would be found in his fantasies. Someone saw the attack and helped the girl. Believing that the man might be inside, a dog walker named Duck Walker told police that he saw numerous drag marks and bloody tracks on the bridge. It was at that moment that the young girl jumped up and grabbed her mother's cell phone to dial 911. After some time, medical assistance was required and the police arrived at the house. Upon entering, they saw multiple stains everywhere, and using their knowledge they came to the conclusion that these were traces of blood. The doctors took the young mother to the hospital for treatment, and the police went from house to house and asked neighbors if they had seen they are doing something strange. When they did this, some neighbors told them about sounds they had not heard in the early morning, so the police went to look for the young mother, as they were still not sure what had happened to her. They continued to hope that she would survive and that they would discover her attacker. It turned out to be quite easy because you provided them with the information necessary to identify him. Charles was taken into custody and interrogated at his parents' house. When it came to the assassination attempt on Ty, This was all that the police were initially sure of. On February 10th, police arrived from many stations throughout the city, bringing with them 5 police cars, 2 of which were forensic vans, as well as a squad of firefighters and boats. They proceeded to the bridge where a thorough search was carried out. That same day, the news began to discuss the police investigation. The media reported in detail about the massive search for Christina's body that was carried out in 3 different places in the city. After several hours of searching, the body of a young woman was discovered late at night in a bag. The man who was found detained that day during the investigation immediately admitted to the police that he had used antipsychotics and had not used them the day before. However, forensic psychiatrists could not confirm this, and on Thursday, February 11, 2021, the police told the media that a woman's body had been found and that her family had already notified. He was therefore found fit for questioning at the police station. Although an official identification has not yet been made, the statement also states that they knew that the person on that particular day was Christina Rowe. At that time, the cordon was removed from one of the areas where the searches were carried out but remained on the other 2, most likely because the detectives were still looking for additional evidence. According to official reports, during a medical examination of the corpse, significant bruises were found on the neck, indicating strangulation, as well as a shoe mark on the upper chest. The victim also received a serious puncture wound that damaged the lungs and heart. Shortly after, police confirmed that 23-year-old Charles Byrne had been formally charged with attempted murder of a minor and the murder of 28-year-old Christina Rowe. The man said he was delirious at the time of the attack on the girl. He claimed that he tried to strangle her to make her sleep, but when she started breathing he realized that it was actually you and stopped. He denied that he had any intention of killing her, and then he realized that she was not just a little evil gnome. Charles appeared in court on Friday, February 12, 2021 for arraignment. Throughout the hearing he kept his head down, arms crossed and unbothered. He pleaded not guilty. Prosecutor Ralph Robbins said the 2 offenses were serious and asked the judge to commit the charges to the Crown Court. In response, the lawyer said his client was aware of what was happening in court, but there was nothing he could do at the moment. The district judge turned to the accused and told him that he was confident that his lawyer had explained the charges to him in detail. He then ordered the man to be remanded in custody, and stated that he would appear in court again on February 16th of that year, but this time at the Crown Court. The judge also made a statement regarding the risks associated with the detention of the defendant, noting that he was confident, based on the statements of the prosecutor and the information he had read about the case, that he would not return and that this would interfere with witnesses. In this regard, he recalled Christina's daughter, a very young victim, and the main witness who stated that the accused knew her well and could have done something to prevent her from testifying against him. During the investigation, the police continued to collect all the evidence, and their work was carried out by forensic experts. Eventually, the trial began in the royal court, where on June 1st the accused surprised everyone by admitting his guilt but not the murder of Christina. Instead, he pleaded guilty to manslaughter by reason of diminished responsibility at a subsequent trial in December 2021 on a charge of attempted murder. However, he claimed that he was mentally unwell at the time, in an effort to downplay the allegation that the girl's sudden appearance in the kitchen caused a fleeting desire to commit suicide. The defense presented medical evidence to support its claim. The prosecution argued that although their client was mentally ill when the crimes were committed, he knew what he was doing was wrong, so in that sense his mental illness did not negate his responsibility or culpability in the attack on Christina. The defense argued that their client was driven by mental problems, as he suffered from paranoid delusions and thinking disorder. The court was told Charles told police he had just lost his temper. He said that due to mental illness he believed Christina was a criminal who had posed as a lady to commit a terrible act. He claimed that he attacked Christina to save the girl, but the prosecution quickly refuted this accusation as he squeezed T's neck until she lost consciousness just minutes after she was rescued. After hearing all sides of the story, the judge turned to the defendant and told him that as a result of the attack, the child woke up alarmed by his mother's screams and ran down the stairs. He stated that he did not find it believable that the defendant came to Christina's house to save them and was convinced that he wanted them instead destroyed. The prosecutor asked what kind of help this was, and they recalled that after disposing of Christina's body, the subject returned to the house carrying a shovel with him, probably intending to bury her. But finding that she regained consciousness, The defense argued that their client saved the girl's life when he returned home. According to the judge, Charles is a very dangerous man who considered the crimes committed to be monstrously disgusting. After all, he was also sentenced to 13 years and 6 months for the attempted murder of Nadi on Friday, March 25, 2022 at the Royal Court. This sentence will be served concurrently with another sentence. At sentencing, the judge decided that he would initially be placed in a high-security psychiatric hospital as necessary for treatment. This occurred on the 25th anniversary of the death of his former partner, 28-year-old Christina. And once his therapy is no longer needed, he will be sent to prison. Christina's grief-stricken father gave a statement to the court during the sentencing, in which he described how his daughter's death had devastated him and had a lasting detrimental effect from which he had not yet fully recovered. The bereaved family added that she had periodic nightmares that caused her to relive the tragedy and that she was traumatized by it. They said the child had been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and had received psychological treatment due to her constant worry that she might be harmed by someone else. Friends, write your opinion in the comments, and also subscribe to the channel and watch my other videos. Thank you all.